Judas really is the greatest tragedy, and it's not because he betrayed Jesus. So he betrays Christ for 30 pieces of silver, basically tells the Pharisees where they can find him, and afterward is absolutely wrecked with guilt and regret. Goes back to those same religious leaders who he had betrayed Christ to, and basically says, I've betrayed an innocent man, or I've borne false witness, which, if you know the Old Testament, bearing false witness under the law was punishable by death. And so Judas went back, seeking justice. And basically, the Pharisees' response to him was, what do we care? See to it yourself. And this is where the real tragedy takes place. I honestly was getting emotional just thinking about this moment in time when the ultimate picture of law versus grace played out simultaneously, with a man wrecked by guilt and shame, seeking justice, goes and pays that ultimate price, while the man that he betrayed was busy paying that price for him and offering and providing the grace that would bring real justice. So the ultimate tragedy was not the betrayal. The ultimate tragedy was that Judas wasted the cross. Where it really got heavy for me was realizing that I waste the cross all the time. As a Christian, every day that I continued to carry around shame and guilt and even attempt to somehow balance the scales, through behavior, through doing whatever I thought might just make up for those wrongs, carrying around the stuff that we're not meant to carry and we don't have to carry, instead of taking that sin, the sin from my past, the sin from my present, and laying it at the foot of the cross. Instead, I strap it on my back and carry around the shame and guilt, distance myself from God. Jesus was in the garden before his arrest, pleading with God, if there's any other way. And then said what I think is the ultimate amen. Not my will, but thy will be done. To think that he said that ultimate amen for me, and then went to the cross and took on my sin, despising the shame, and cried out, it is finished. It is finished. And that I still treat it like it's not finished, and waste the cross just like Judas. But this is where Easter comes in. The beauty of Easter is, what was finished. If it weren't for what happened on Easter, then it is finished would be the famous last words of Jesus, and we would only assume that what was finished was his life. But that's not what he was referring to. When Jesus cried out, it is finished, he was referring to the mission. He was referring to the redemption that he'd purchased for anyone who realized that they couldn't, through any amount of self-effort, even the scales of justice, but that it was only in accepting what he has done, and that it is finished. And what happened on Easter was proof. It was the Father responding to Christ's amen with an amen of his own. It is finished. The way has been made. The door of salvation is open. And death ultimately doesn't win. And it is finished weren't Christ's last words. Christ's last words were spoken after his resurrection, before his ascension, where he told his disciples to go and make disciples of all nations. What Christ was really doing in those final words was recruiting. When it was finished, in that moment, the war was won, but the battle was just beginning. What Christ wants, what he's looking for, is men who are willing to say amen, carry on his mission, allow him to live and work through them. I'm not asked to die for my sin, but I am asked to die to self. Galatians 2:20, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not set aside the grace of God, for if righteousness comes through the law, then Christ died in vain. If I'm honest, I wanted to turn to Galatians 2:20, not even realizing how perfect 21 was. Don't waste the cross. Take Galatians 2:20 seriously. Take Acts 20:24 seriously, and live to God. Spread the good news. I think that it's that purpose, that missional aspect of life that I was missing. And the motivation is love. Why did he do it? Why did Christ say that ultimate amen? Why did Christ go to the cross for me? He went to the cross for me because he loves me. That is the motivation that I want to hang on to every day. That is the motivation for my amen. I think that just the closing thought for me is really just that I don't want to waste the cross anymore. I want to allow love to be my motivation, to say amen every day, moment by moment, and be the kind of man that God can live through and work through and love through. If that's the kind of man that you want to be, then we're on the same journey. Yeah, hopefully this was an encouragement, and happy Resurrection Sunday.